The second set of buttons in your toolbox, starting with the letter T on it, are the drawing and type tools. Notice at the bottom right of that T button, there's a diagonally pointing triangle. If you place your cursor on that type tool button and hold the mouse button down like this, you'll see that there are actually two tools with that button. A type tool and a type on a path tool. You want to make sure that the type tool is selected. Move your cursor in the middle of the first paragraph and click your cursor in the middle of the word brown. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, Control 1, since I'm working on a Windows PC. If you're on the Mac, the keyboard shortcut would be Command 1 to actually bring that up to 100% view. You could have also done that by changing this edit box here in the middle of the menu bar. Let's get back to our text. Whenever you're working to change text attributes, something we're going to be doing extensively throughout this InDesign course, you need to use the type tool. There are specific instances where you don't, but using the type tool gives you the most control. Hover your cursor over that word brown and double click. This highlights the entire word. To highlight an entire line, you can do that by triple clicking quickly. 1, 2, 3, and that highlights the entire line of type. You may need to slow down your computer's double click speed to do this, but quickly quadruple clicking 1, 2, 3, 4 highlights an entire paragraph. And if you've got an itchy mouse finger, quintuple clicking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actually allows us to highlight an entire thread of type. But there's a faster way to highlight everything. Click anywhere in the text with your type tool. Then select the Edit, select All menu command. The keyboard shortcut is Command A on a Mac or Control A on a Windows PC. Selecting that command with the text cursor in a thread of type highlights everything. Everything you can see and everything you can't see. We'll work extensively with formatting text threads in later chapters of this InDesign course. To highlight the first sentence in the first paragraph, click just outside the period after the word country, just like this. Now, hold the mouse button down and drag it up and to the left before the start of the word now. This is another way that you can highlight text. It's generally easier to manually select text by starting at the end of a selection you want, then dragging back to the start of the selection that you're looking for. Now for other tools, Command Control A works differently, and we'll demonstrate that shortly. Let's go to the last tool in the Drawing and Type Tools set, the one just before the scissors. Put your cursor on it and hold the mouse button down. That will let you see what's hidden underneath that tool. There are three tools there: the rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, and the polygon tool. We're going to select the ellipse tool, and we're going to use the keyboard shortcut Control 0 on Windows, Command 0 if I was on a Mac, to go back to what's known as the fit in window view. If you go off the left side of the page here, hold your mouse button down and drag it down and to the right, you'll see what the ellipse tool does. It draws symmetrical ovals. If you hold down the Shift key before you hold the mouse button down and drag, what it'll do is it'll create a perfect circle. But it's important for you when you do that to make sure that you let up off the mouse button first before you let off the Shift key. Otherwise, you might accidentally distort that perfect circle that you were trying to draw. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create another oval over the top of our text thread, just like this. Now that we've created that, let's make it a little jazzier. I'm going to go over here to the side dock and open up the color panel. I'm going to click on this little square all the way up to the upper left, the fill square, and in this rainbow pictogram, let's pick a really loud color like a bright purple, or in my case, I'm going to grab a real eye-searing orange to fill that in with. Then what we want to do is we're going to take the stroke That's this hollow rectangle that we've got down here below. And I'm going to set that stroke all the way down here in the lower right hand corner and make it black. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to Control 1 to see that 100% view. And if you would, click on your type tool. And what we're going to do is we're going to place text inside of this oval. Take your cursor and put it right at the top center anchor point of our oval. When you see this little oval bracket and type on it, click just like so. What it will do is it will actually put type inside the circle. So if I type a word, you'll see that that actually is fitting inside our oval. If you want to put type inside of a shape, this is exactly the way you want to do it. But I don't. I want to put this type on the outside of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command-Z if I'm on a Mac or Control-Z on the PC to go backwards to the point where I had the color filled in. Now if I look at this, I've actually gone a little too far. I did that intentionally. You can move forward through a command sequence by pressing Control-Shift-Z on the PC or Command-Shift-Z on the Mac. Working on a PC desktop like we are here, Control-Z undoes and Control-Shift-Z will redo. So like shuffling a deck back to the spot where we last saved our file up to the furthest spot forward of that save. To type on the path, you need the Type on a Path tool and to carefully place the cursor on the path you want to type on. Let's demonstrate how that works. Click on your selection tool and click outside the page where there's absolutely nothing to deselect everything. Then place your cursor inside the oval and click in it to select the oval and highlight the 8 anchor points. Now get your Type on a Path tool underneath that T button in our Type and Drawing Tools set. I'm going to take that cursor and I'm going to put it in the center of the top anchor point. I know I hit the perfect spot because a little plus sign will appear with the little ski slope going through the cursor. Click the mouse button and you should see the cursor flashing on top of the oval. Now type something. Anything. So you can put in whatever you'd like there. Triple click to highlight the entire line. 1, 2, 3, highlighting the entire line. Let's practice some quick type alignment tricks. We didn't need to highlight the entire line of type. Just putting your cursor in that line would have been okay, but this is good practice. Press Command-Shift-R if you're on the Mac or Control-Shift-R working on a Windows PC like we are here. Notice the type shifts to left of where you first placed your cursor. This is the same as selecting the Type, Paragraph menu command, and working with the Paragraph panel. If you look at this, you'll see that the Align Right text button is selected. Now if you would, press Control-Shift-L if you're working on the PC, or Command-Shift-L if you're doing this on your Mac. When you do that, you'll see that the alignment switches back to the far left one in the panel, showing that it aligns left. And our text now goes to the right of where we placed the cursor. To center that type, well, let's do that now. Press Control or Command, plus the Shift key, depending on what platform you're on, and the C key to center that type, which it does, but you'll notice it puts it down at the bottom of the oval. Notice also that it highlights the Align Center button in our paragraph panel. Click the X to the upper right of that panel to close it. We'll get back to it later in this chapter of our InDesign course. Go to your toolbox and get the Selection tool. Click on the oval with the upside down type. Don't mess with it yet, but notice that there's a little blue cursor in the middle of your text and a line between two bigger boxes above your top anchor point where you put your insertion point. We're going to take the lazy way out first, then show how we can do this with more control. Look up top at your control panel. At the far left of the control panel is what's known as the reference point proxy. This sets a spot where transformations will be made to selected elements. Click in the spot in the very middle, like we have right here, to set the transformation point of our oval as its middle reference point. Now go to the top edit box, 4 columns from the left. This is the Rotate Selection edit box. Double-click to highlight the default 0-degree setting in this box, then type 180 and hit the Tab key to enter your value and rotate the oval on its own axis, placing the type on top. This is the easiest way to turn that text right side up, but there are other ways too. Place your cursor on that line between the two boxes at the very bottom. When you get there, hold the mouse button down and then drag that line in the direction that the arrow is pointing to the center of the anchor point between the two left side corners. When I let go of the mouse button, the type is centered in between those entry and exit points, but you'll notice that it's turned it upside down again as well. We're going to take that other entry point and we're going to move it over to the corresponding spot right here on the right side of our oval. And what we should see is that our type is centered once again, but it's perfectly upside down. We know how to fix this. Double-click in that Rotate Selection edit box in your control panel and change the 180 degrees back to 0. 0, and hit the Tab key. This will flip the text back right side up. If that text isn't perfectly aligned, just adjust the entry and exit handles until it is. One last concept before we finish this lesson. With your selection tool, click on absolutely nothing off the edge of the page. Then press Command-Control-A, depending on what platform you're on. When you do that, with most any tool but the Type tool, that command selects every element on the page area and its surrounding clipboard. We'll be working with other tools in the Drawing and Type Tools section later in this InDesign course. The Line tool, which lets us draw lines on the page. The Pen tools and the Pencil tool, which allow us to draw elements on screen, though they can serve other purposes. We'll practice with the pen tools later in this InDesign course. And the Frame tools, which function just like the Shape tool we worked with earlier. Both shapes and frames can be elements themselves, or they can contain content from other files. Let's wrap up. Save your file by pressing Command or Control-S, depending on what platform you're on, and we'll work with other tools throughout our InDesign course. Let's move on to working with the control panel above the document window.